What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Resident Movie Podcast, a podcast where everything is connected. I'm your host, Jacob Thompson, and joining me is my co-host, friend, and the person most likely to imitate a priest in order to cheat at chess, Alex Perkins. We're doing tonight.
I'm well, thanks. I don't know. I don't really cheat at chess. I play above
says the
board.
man who's been banned from chess.com.
That's not for cheating. That's because I got too mean in the comments section.
Damn.
It was a deserved ban. All right.
You're not avoiding the allegations. You accept them.
No, I accept them.
I also have to ask you now, was the chess good in this movie? We didn't really get to see the board very well.
You didn't get to see a lot of it, but I mean, man hung his queen. So no, but there's context behind it, you know?
Yeah.
Clearly he's got other stuff on the mind, so.
Understandably so.
Yeah, it was never, like, obviously bad, so. Hooray!
Better than that short. War is over,
God,
or whatever.
Damn it. War is over, looking at it. Swear to God.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is the podcast where every Perk and I review a movie connected. It's the last one we watched. If you like our show, we post pretty much every Friday on podcast services and YouTube. And, come watch movies with us, tell your friends about it. It's a good time. Perk, last week we reviewed The Third Man, and we made the obvious connection of movies with numbers in the title to this.
Ordinal adverbs.
Ordinal adverbs.
Ordinal adverbs.
The Seventh Seal. Third Man, Seventh Seal. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
Perk, why don't you intro it for us?
All right. The Seventh Seal is a 1957 joint directed by Ingmar Bergman. First Bergman movie I've seen. I assume you as well.
Mm-hmm.
And stars Max von Sydow as is it
Antonius Block.
Antonius, thank you. Antonius Block, a knight returning to Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
Sweden. From the Crusades. He meets death and challenges him to a chess game, and as they travel across the country, their chess game plays out. Got some fun facts about the movie. Ingmar Bergman actually credited the making of this film with helping him overcome his crippling fear of death. The inspiration of the film is drawn from Kurosawa, as is the inspiration of every film ever made.
A little bit closer in timeline this time, though, at least.
Yeah, Bergman was apparently a big fan of Kurosawa's period pieces. And the chess pieces used in the movie were sold in 2009 by the Bergman estate for $150,000.
It's pretty good. Pretty good profit.
I would have thought more, but it's an old movie.
Yeah, I'll say, how many people know about this movie besides like film buffs,
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of directors who were involved in that bidding or something.
Yeah, yeah. It'd be fun to know who got him. If it was anybody famous, probably not, but
probably just a collector.
Yeah. Perk, I'll go first on this one. So, based on the log line, which is, a knight returning to Sweden plays chess with death. I was like, all right, the whole movie's gonna be the chess game. It's gonna be these two guys sitting down discussing life and death. What does it mean? Maybe learning about the knight, and his life as they play chess, and very cerebral, very contained movie. Not what this ended up being, which is fine. They didn't lie. This does happen in the movie. But the structure of it was a lot more interesting in that, like, it really much felt like a play to me, with like little like vignettes as we move through the countryside, which I read in the trivia also. This was kind of based on a play that he wrote in like one of his classes he was teaching or something. So it kind of started as a play and then became a screenplay and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, we move through and we really get to see how different communities and groups of people are dealing with the fact that the Black Plague is here and therefore everyone's afraid of dying. And then combined with, struggles of faith and is God real? Which is really fascinating. Like, I think it's a really, really interesting watch. And I think there's some beautiful shots in this, like really, really well shot, especially like the singles and people's faces are really gorgeous. So I think I liked it. Like, this is another movie where like I feel like I understand it, but I feel like I still miss something. Like there's a lot to dig into. I don't think I fully grabbed it all in the first watch. Um, and I think I do wish we had more of Death. I would have liked to hear him just kind of talk more with the knight and just them to have more explored conversations as opposed to just kind of context. But overall, I think I really liked it. This is a really cool movie, and I think there's a lot to dig into.
Yeah, so I was in the same boat. Came in pretty much blind, other than the a chess game with Death, and they do play it. But you're right. It's like they sit down to chess, and then almost immediately, like, the scene changes, and we're like meeting the actors troupe. So, yeah, I was at first I wasn't too crazy about it. I was like, well, what are we doing here? Let's get back to the chess. But
yeah,
over the course, I was brought on board. I liked it a lot. I like the way that, because yes, the overarching narrative is that the knight is playing chess with Death, but in the meanwhile, they kind of tell a story and meet people who are kind of like, we get to almost see Death in the world with all the, like, the plague and all the religious zealots who are whipping themselves. And you get to see a family with a young child, which is like they think they're on the full opposite side of Death.
Yeah.
You kind of get to see the way Death interacts with the world, even if he's not directly on screen.
Unless he's chopping down a tree.
So that was the biggest, maybe not the biggest, but one of the big takeaways for me. Movie is, like, pretty funny. Like, there are a lot of, like, good funny moments, like when Death is cutting down the guy out of the tree, and he's like, "Oh, you sure? Even if I'm an actor?" He's like, "Yeah, I saw you die, so it's your time.
This is happening."
And he just cuts down his tree, and my man's is dead. I chuckled a lot. Also,
thing on that, because I may be going way too much into this. Do you think, like, if there was a detective, all right, in this time period, and he came across this body, would he be like, a person or somebody holding an axe clearly cut down this tree and killed this man, or was that like a metaphor for the plague? I guess we see a guy die of the plague later, so I guess maybe not.
I wouldn't even say, like, metaphor for the plague necessarily, but it was like clearly a pretty metaphorical death. Like, yeah, I don't think someone is literally gonna walk up and see, like, oh, a perfectly cut down tree and a dead guy who clearly fell out of it. But yeah, I just excuse me, I was just chuckling so much at that scene. And also Yuns, the squire, very funny guy.
Is he funny, or is he just like,
sometimes
super,
a little
like, hates women,
a little out of pocket. Sometimes a little out of pocket with the women stuff, but like when he's standing behind the dumb smith and, like, narrating for him and stuff. He's a clever guy, and his takes on the world are also pretty funny. Like,
who does he
so
look
cynical?
Like? He looks so familiar. Like, not as I know that actor. He looks just like an actor that was driving me crazy. Maybe
like Russell Crowe, a little bit.
A little. I
I know what you mean. He definitely looked incredibly familiar.
Yeah. And yeah, I wanted to like him, but then he's just like, to the woman he says, like, I could have raped you, and it's like, Jesus Christ, man, like. And then,
I could use a housekeeper, though. Come on.
Come along. And I
saved your life.
I'm so happy she finally said something. I was just waiting for her to say anything in this movie. And like, people just don't even acknowledge she exists for a large part. They like the picnic with the strawberries. She's like, oh, have some, and they're talking, and she's in the corner, like, not even acknowledging that she's there. So I'm glad she had, like, a line at the end. And I was gonna get, like, not mad, but I was gonna speak on that. But, like, no, this is a period piece about medieval times. Yeah, women were property back then. This is not unrealistic. And yeah, the squire character, yeah, I'm wondering if he kind of represents, like, some nihilism.
Yeah, I think so.
Like, the world's ending, I can do what I want. But he also is like, I'm a poet and, like, all that kind of stuff. So, but he was an interesting character to watch for sure.
Yeah, I think that both of the main characters are not just, like, one note at like, there's more to him than just being an ultra asshole to his new housekeeper, I guess. But yeah, you can see, like, both the squire and Antonius, our knight, have clear, like, affectations of the war.
Yeah.
you can obviously see that they're processing things differently. Where like Antonius is desperately grasping out, trying to find meaning, find proof that there is a god, and Jens is kind of just like, whatever, man. We're only here for a little while.
Mhm.
Let's sing a song.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that the kind of merry band of characters that they eventually kind of gather. Did not expect that to happen in this movie, but I think it worked.
Yeah, definitely.
And I didn't really put it together until after I finished the movie and was looking at like Letterboxd reviews and stuff. But like, he says the night Antonio says in the beginning when he talks to Death, like, I want to do like have like one redemptive act before I die, and like do something good. And I didn't really put it together afterward. And at the end of the he kind of saves the couple and the baby.
Yeah, he
right?
he stalls so they can sneak away.
Yeah, he does the classic move in a board game when you're losing of just knocking over the pieces and being like, oh no. But I thought that was nice, and like he's still afraid of death when it comes to him at the end, but he did do like one good thing, and if God exists,
and then
he's going to, maybe.
And I don't know if you agree with this, but I absolutely love the scene where Yof looks off into the hills and sees them all dancing in a line behind Death. Just like super unhinged, weird, goofy dancing in a line following Death into oblivion. I don't know why. I just really like that. I like that shot a lot. It's like almost like such a juxtaposition of like the scariness and inevitability of death with like, oh, they're just kind of like having a little jamboree across a field. I think maybe that's kind of thematic.
Yeah.
And like accepting that, death, it does come for everyone, and it's not something to live in terror of. It's maybe a little just something that happens.
Yeah.
Like dancing across the field. Fun
fact about that scene, if you saw in the trivia, but that was completely not planned.
Oh, really?
The director, which I already forgot his name, Ingmar Bergman, he like was looking at the hills and he saw a cool cloud and he's got the idea. So they like, and some of the actors already left. So some of the people in that line aren't the actual actors. They're like,
just
other people in the
someone
crew.
Wearing, yeah.
And then the actor for Joe just had to make up lines for that.
That's awesome.
And it works. I think it's a cool way to end the movie. Another thing about this movie, Perk. Why is everyone so fucking hot in this movie?
Yeah.
These Swedish people are smoking.
Other than maybe the Smith.
Yeah, except maybe him.
Not great, but everyone else, yeah, you're right. Everyone's really pretty.
They're hot as hell.
Yeah. It's really hard to pin down, but Max von Sydow was 28 in this movie. And he looks like he could be anywhere between 20 and 50.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love Mia and Jof. Relationship goals, they're the best.
They're great.
Love them being around.
They're a little kid with no pants.
Yeah.
It's funny. Is that how the Middle Ages were? Did the kids just not have pants?
He does in some scenes, but the other scenes, yeah, he's just full commando.
He's just going Winnie the Pooh mode.
But they did a great job of like showing, not like ignorance, but just brightness. Like the world is really scary right now, but they're just being happy and living their life. And even when Jof like gets like kind of assaulted at the bar, he comes home and sees his son. He's like, oh, I'm good now. Like, I'm happy. So they were a nice juxtaposition against like how dark
kind
the
of like
world
a
is.
palate cleanser for sure.
Yeah, and it was nice to see them get away at the end. Yeah, I don't have too much more to say. Like, I think, like I said, this movie is interesting because we get these like little just vignettes of like, just like the mob of fanatics whipping themselves in the bar with Jof in the forest, like this kind of little scenes. Like, all right, let's see how these people react. And it makes sense that the director's like, this is him trying to work through his thoughts on death. Through like different lenses.
It does feel like the main character has like a very personal through line.
Yeah.
Like, so obviously when writing that character, a lot of Bergman's personality went into it.
Yeah. And like I said before, really beautiful.
Yeah, I didn't mention it, but it is really gorgeously made. And you can tell that the technology is kind of limited because you're not dealing with like the nicest cameras of all time. Mm-hmm. But even still, some of the shots are just so beautiful, and the utilization of lighting on some of the close-up, just face shots, like when at one point Antonius is, I believe, talking to the woman who's about to be burned, and he like looks over his shoulder, and like the way the shadows cascade on his face are so beautiful. I was really impressed with how good the movie looks for an older movie. I mean, we've seen a lot of gorgeous older movies, but they pretty clearly were on much bigger productions than this.
Yeah, and that same scene, there's also a shot where the soldier is in the foreground, and you see him listening in as Antonius is talking to the woman in the background, and he like his eyes keep darting over when he hears something interesting. There's a nice composition, and just kind of shows like maybe like soldiers a bit conflicted, but they're getting paid to do it, so they don't really care, Yeah, cool movie.
I think we're both in the same boat where we're like, I really liked it, ?
Yeah, like I didn't give it like a star rating on Letterboxd. I'm like, I don't know how to.
It's hard to. This is a really hard one to boil like that, like to boil down to a number.
Yeah.
I've come to a trend, I think, now where like Letterboxd is cool because you can give reviews. I think everything's pretty much just 4 stars. Like, I just really like a lot of movies. And 4 stars is I really liked it. So
there you go.
That's what kind of everything's getting as of late.
You could do what Io Debris does, where just not give star ratings, just write reviews.
But number make brain feel good, So,
of course.
Everything must be listed and prioritized, and
all that fun stuff.
Yeah, always.
Thinking about like recommendations, this is not an actual recommendation, but it just made me think of Monty Python, which I'm sure aped some stuff in this movie. But just like the way like the sets and the environment, and it's hard not.
Some of the like casual humor as well felt a little bit Monty Python, obviously to a much smaller extent. But just like the flippancy with which Yuns throws around some barbs, it's like, oh, that was really funny and kind of out of the blue, and I like it. I do have one which came to mind a lot, is The Green Knight, which I talk about all the time. I think it was my favorite movie at like 21 or whenever it came out. Just as kind of similar themology of, it's like a medieval time, and it's an adventurer grappling with death and going on an adventure while heading to his demise. So there's definitely some parallels. I'm sure there was a lot of inspiration taken by David Lowery. And yeah, also really, really good. So if you like The Seventh Seal. Oh, is it really?
Yeah, I just got put on Max this month, so I need to watch it. I've been watching it.
I probably got to watch it again, too.
Since it came out. Yeah, that's a really good shout. Well, yeah, that's our review of The Seventh Seal. Hope you like it. Check this movie out. I think it's very interesting and worth watching for sure. For let's get into a little bit of bonus reviews. I got a couple things to just touch on here, not too long. First one is I watched 95 Senses, which is the animated short that you recommended I watch from this year's Oscar nominations. It's the American submission, narrated by Tim Blake Nelson. Really good. Really, really good. The thing I like the most about it is how it peels back the layers and reveals
what's going
on in the story, which is really clever and great. The different animators, different animation styles for different senses as they talk about them is really well done. I do think it's lacking one thing, which is a strong central theme or message. It's more just like an interesting story, but I don't feel like there's like a take home message or something that we're kind of pointing to. Not to say that's the reason it lost, but I think it's like a cool thing, and it's like, oh, that was interesting, but it didn't really like leave me with an impression of what it was trying to say, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see that. That's fair. I mean, honestly, what I took away from it is kind of just more like the old man yells at cloud type stuff. Like, put your phones down, live in the moment a little more. You never know, right?
Yeah.
Be where you are rather than somewhere else. But I can see what you're saying there. In fairness, the winning movie had a very straightforward message.
A little too straightforward.
War's bad, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, John or Sean and Yoko. But yeah, I can see that for sure. You see though why I recommended it, because like going into it, you know, the way it kind of unfolds at the start, you're like, okay, I can kind of get behind this. It's nothing special, but I can get behind it. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, wait, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
There's actually a point, I watched this as a part of the compilation. I went to the theater, and it was a fairly full theater. There's a scene right before you kind of understand what's going on where like the whole crowd was laughing.
Yeah.
And then the next line is like, oh. And then it kind of unfolds from there, and it's like, oh wow. Really caught the entire audience off guard with that one. And I really like that. I really like the rug pull because it didn't feel out of place, and it was really effective.
Yeah, I agree. And Tim Blake Nelson killed it on the narration. Just really, really fantastic.
As that we all assumed he would, and we're right to have.
Yeah. So yeah, give it a watch. I Googled it, and the YouTube video sent me got taken down. But if you just Google it, it's on like documentaryplus.com, and you can just watch it on there.
It's not. I assumed it was like blocked behind a paywall.
No, I think it also might be on Apple TV, maybe. I'm not quite sure, but
ooh, all right.
It's watchable, so I would definitely check that out. Other quick review is I finished Words of Radiance, which is the second book in the Stormlight Archive series I've been reading.
Wow.
Another 1,000-pager that I just demolished because it's so good.
I'm impressed.
This series kicks ass, Perk. I'm so in. All my free time last week was just reading this book. I just adore the characters, and it's hard to talk about without spoiling, but the way the characters have evolved from the first book to the second book, and the arcs they're going on now as a kind of a continuation of how they started in the first book is really, really clever and super satisfying and interesting. We got major lore drops, which I love a good lore drop. And I'd be like, oh, that's what's going on, blah, blah, blah. Because there's like the book is set up in parts, Perk, with which follows. There's 5 parts which follows the characters, but in between there are interludes which follow other characters that we may or may not have heard of before and give extra context to the world. And some of those are really fascinating. And the next book I'm going to read in the series is kind of an offshoot of one of the characters from the interludes of this one before going to the third main book in the series. So yeah, I'm just absolutely loving it. If you enjoy high fantasy at all, like Lord of the Rings type stuff, and you want to get into another world, highly recommend the Stormlight Archive. And now is the best time to do it because the 5th book is coming out at the end of this year. So it's a great time to kind of dive in and get caught up. So, but yeah, Words of Radiance kicked ass. Can't wait to keep going on this series. All right. That is our episode for this week. Thank you everyone for watching. Next week, we're going to be off just because of traveling and busyness, but we'll be back the week after with episode 100. We'll be doing 7 Samurai, baby. Where do you go from the 7th seal besides 7 Samurai? Both got
number 7, baby. The
and also,
number 7.
You know, this movie was inspired by Kurosawa, so that's another little connection. Yeah. But yeah, this is an all-time classic, probably one of the most influential movies of all time. We see so many movies that are based off of this. With what was the cowboy one?
Magnificent
Seven. The new Zack Snyder Rebel Moon movies are based on this. Like, there's so many things that are based on 7 Samurai. So it's on HBO Max. Dedicate some time to it. It's 3.5 hours long. This is not a short movie, but I think it'll be worth it. So next time it'll be 7 Samurai on Max. But until then, thanks for watching. Bye.
See ya.